Hi, my name is Lila. I want to tell you a story. It is my story. A story of love. A story of pain. A story of dreams. It is the story of how I fell in love with a man and tried everything to win his heart. When I was 22 years old, I met a man named Daniel. He was tall, quiet, and kind. He worked at a bookstore near my college. I saw him every morning when I walked to class. He wore glasses. He read many books. He never noticed me. Not once. But I noticed him. Every single day. One morning, I bought a book just to speak to him. I said, "Hi. I love this author." He smiled and said, "Good choice." That was all. But to me, it meant everything. I wanted to talk to him more. I started visiting the bookstore every day. I looked at books I didn't even want. I just wanted to be near him. I learned what he liked. He liked coffee without sugar. He liked history books. He liked rainy days. So I started reading history. I learned about wars, kings, and old cities. I joined a book club. I even started writing small articles about history just to impress him. I also started dressing differently. Not too much. Just soft colors, simple clothes. I wore glasses even when I didn't need them. I hoped he would notice. But still, he didn't. One day, I saw him with another girl. She was laughing. He was smiling. My heart broke. I cried all night. I told myself to stop. To move on. But I couldn't. So I made a plan. I would become the best version of myself. Not for him. But for me. I worked hard. I finished college with top grades. I got a job at a small museum. I met people, made friends, and learned to be strong. But still, I thought of him. Sometimes I walked past the bookstore. Just to see him. I talked to my diary. I wrote his name on every page. I told the paper everything I wanted to say to him. Do you see me now? Do you see my heart? I even drew small sketches of him, his glasses, his books, his soft smile. I wrote poems too. Sad ones. Hopeful ones. I listened to songs that reminded me of him. I baked cookies and imagined giving them to him. I sat alone in coffee shops, hoping he would walk in. 2 years passed. During those years, I changed a lot. I learned how to speak in public. I learned how to lead tours at the museum. I learned to smile even when I was sad. People started calling me confident. But inside, I still thought about Daniel. I even moved into a small apartment on my own. It was not big, but it had a window with a view of the city. I decorated it with books, small plants, and candles. At night, I would sit near the window and wonder, where is he now? Is he happy? My friends told me to forget him. They said, there are many good men. But I couldn't. I had never felt that way about anyone else. I even dreamed about him. In my dreams, we walked under the stars. We drank tea in silence, and he smiled at me. I woke up with tears, and a heart that still hoped. I spent many weekends walking alone in parks. I watched couples smile, hold hands, and share ice cream. I sat on a bench and watched the sky. I always believed that maybe, one day, Daniel would come sit next to me. Then one day, I saw him in the museum. He came to see an exhibit. I was giving a tour. I saw him in the crowd. My heart jumped. After the tour, he came to me. "You're Lila, right? You used to come to the bookstore." I smiled and said, "Yes. I remember you too. We talked. A lot." He said, "You know so much about history." I love that. I wanted to say, "I learned it all for you." But I didn't. We started meeting more. First as friends. Then as more. He told me, "You're kind. You're smart. I feel happy around you." I learned that the girl he was with 2 years ago was only a friend. I felt silly for being jealous, but also relieved. We went for coffee. Then for walks. We talked about books, music, life, dreams. I learned he loved painting. He loved jazz music. He had a cat named Felix. He learned about my diary. I told him how I wrote about him. He was surprised. Then he smiled and said, "That's the sweetest thing anyone has ever done for me." One evening, under the stars, he held my hand. We sat on a park bench. He looked at me and said, "Lila, do you know how special you are?" I couldn't speak. My eyes filled with tears. That night, we walked for hours. We didn't need many words. Just silence, smiles, and the sound of our hearts speaking. He took me to his favorite places, a quiet lake outside the city, a small jazz cafe, and a street filled with used bookshops. We read books together. We painted on weekends. We made tea and watched the rain. We took long bus rides to small towns. We watched the sunrise at the beach. We danced in the kitchen at midnight. 1 year later, he asked me to marry him. He didn't give me a big ring. He gave me a letter. In the letter he wrote, "You waited for me. You believed in love. Let me love you for the rest of my life." I cried when I read it. Now we live in a small home full of books, coffee mugs, and laughter. We have a garden with sunflowers. We named our cat Luna. We still read history books. We still go for walks in the rain. He doesn't know how hard I tried to win his heart. But maybe one day, I'll tell him. Sometimes I look at our wedding photos. I remember all the years I waited. All the tears. All the hopes. I think about the girl I used to be, the girl who stood in a bookstore just to say hello. The girl who read history for love. The girl who cried alone in her room. That girl never gave up. I write letters to her now. I say, "You were brave. You were patient. You were strong." Love is not always easy. Sometimes, love means waiting. Sometimes, it means growing. Sometimes, it means believing when everyone says stop. I tell young girls who ask me, follow your heart. But also build yourself. Make your own light. We now travel together. We have been to Italy, Japan, and Morocco. We take photos and print them. We hang them on the wall of memories. Every trip, Daniel writes one sentence, "I'm glad I found you." Every night, we write one thing we're grateful for and put it in a jar. We call it the Grateful Jar. We started a podcast together where we talk about books and love stories. People write to us and say we give them hope. Some say they met their soulmate because of something we said. That makes us smile. We started a little bookshop too, just like the one where I first saw him. We call it Luna and Light. I work there on weekends. Daniel paints in the back. Sometimes people ask, "Are you the couple from the podcast?" And we laugh. We are building a life that is full of little things, a warm blanket, a shared story, a quiet evening with tea. We also started a small charity to give free books to children. Every month, we visit schools and read to kids. I always end my stories with, "Never stop dreaming." We painted our bedroom ceiling with stars. At night, we look up and talk about the universe. Daniel says, "Maybe love is the strongest force in the world." And I believe him. My name is Lila. I loved from afar. I waited. I worked. I grew. And in the end, I found love. And every day now, I wake up beside the man I once only dreamed of. And I whisper to myself, it was worth it. And deep inside, I thank that brave girl I once was, the girl who never stopped loving. This is not the end of the story. This is only the beginning. And now, we are thinking of having a child. A little one to share our love with. Maybe a daughter. Maybe a son. We don't know yet. But we know this, our love is ready. Our hearts are open. We talk about names. We talk about baby books. We plan a nursery. I write new pages in my diary now, pages about hope, about life, about new love growing inside of me. Months passed, and I found out I was pregnant. I still remember that morning. The sunlight was coming through the kitchen window. Daniel was making tea. I stood there holding the test in my hand. My heart was beating so fast. He turned around and saw my face. "What is it?" he asked gently. I showed him the test. I couldn't say anything. I just nodded. He dropped the spoon and came to me. He held me so tight and whispered, "We're going to be parents." We sat on the couch for hours that day. Talking. Laughing. Crying. He put his hand on my stomach and said, "Hello, little one. We already love you so much." Pregnancy wasn't easy. I felt sick in the mornings. I was tired a lot. But Daniel was always there. He made special food. He read books about babies. He painted the nursery with stars and clouds. Every night, he talked to my belly. He said, "Your daddy can't wait to meet you." We picked names. For a girl, Eliana. For a boy, Leo. I wrote letters to the baby. I told them stories about how I met Daniel, and how much we had waited for this day. I drew pictures of our little family. I imagined the baby's smile, their small hands, their first words. When the baby finally came, it was a rainy afternoon. Daniel held my hand the whole time. He cried more than I did. And then, we heard the first cry. It was a girl. Eliana. She was perfect. Tiny fingers. Big eyes. A strong voice. We brought her home and showed her the nursery. We played soft music. We rocked her to sleep. I stayed up many nights just watching her breathe. Our lives changed completely. We sang lullabies. We took turns waking up at night. We went for slow walks in the park with the stroller. Daniel took hundreds of pictures. We made a scrapbook called Eliana's First Year. She said her first word at 8 months. It was, "book." We both laughed and cried. Eliana grew fast. At 2 years old, she had her father's eyes and my smile. She loved to listen to stories. Every night, she asked, "Tell me about the moon. Tell me about when you met Daddy." We made it a tradition, story time under the stars. We would sit on a blanket in the garden. I told her how I waited for Daniel. How I believed in love. She would clap and say, "Tell it again, Mommy." Daniel started painting stories on her walls. Castles. Dragons. Magical forests. Eliana called him my artist daddy. One day, she found my old diary. I read parts of it to her. I said, "These pages are full of hope." She didn't understand everything, but she said, "I want to write hope too." We gave her her first journal when she turned 5. She drew pictures of our family and wrote, "I love love." Now she is 8. She loves books. She loves art. She tells everyone, "My parents are best friends." Daniel and I still drink tea by the window. We still write in our grateful jar. We still walk in the rain. Sometimes, we look at each other and smile without words. We know how far we've come. From a girl who stood in a bookstore, to a woman with a family and a full heart. Our home is full of laughter, books, baby toys, old letters, and new dreams. And in the middle of it all, love lives. Always. My name is Lila. I loved. I waited. I dreamed. And now, I live my dream. Every single day.